Hello, class. This is our group presentation where we are going to illustrate for you definitions of public opinion. Specifically, aggregate of opinion, reflections of majority belief, clash of interest groups, media and alike opinion, and last but not least, public as fiction or myth. Aggregate of opinion is a public opinion we regularly see when political matters are discussed. Its opposite is individual opinion, which is the attitude of a single person, while aggregate opinion is the collective attitudes of a group of people. To better explain this, I will give an example. Imagine a teacher comes up to a group and asks them a question. They then separate that group into two different groups, Group A and Group B. Group A is told to write their answer directly down on a piece of paper and immediately hand it in. Group B, on the other hand, was told to discuss the question and then come up with a single answer. They would then write down that single answer on a piece of paper and hand that in. Group A would be an example of individual opinion, while Group B would be an example of aggregate opinion. Here we can see an example of aggregate opinion when it comes to political issues. One of those issues being Roe versus Wade. HKS Professor Maya Sen said, Roe is actually a pretty popular Supreme Court opinion. Around 60% of Americans and a majority of independents believe that it should not be overturned. As we can see, she is using aggregative opinion because she is using the collective opinion of all Americans, 60% and a majority of independents, instead of just using the opinion of a single person.
Alright, so the definition of public opinion that I chose to talk about is the reflection of majority beliefs. In our textbook, beliefs are defined as thoughts or information regarding an attitude or object, and then these thoughts or information reflect what an individual finds true about the object. And then basically what this definition says is that public opinion is a reflection of what the majority of the public believes in. And my example of this is that 64% of Americans identify as Christian believers, and that would be the majority of Americans due to it being over 50%. And then this is kind of reflected in the struggle for abortion rights, same-sex marriage, as well as transgender rights and acceptance, because in the Christian religion, these things are kind of sacrilegious or frowned upon. So people who are like Bible clutchers and are very into religion and how it relates to the country don't want these things to be accepted. Alright, so the article that I found that best relates to the reflection of majority beliefs was this overview of a Pew Research Center study that was aimed at figuring out the percentage of U.S. citizens who identify as Christian, as well as identify trends of people leaving and joining the religion to estimate its future popularity. And the reason this stood out to me is because the conservative or Republican Party generally likes to ride on these Christian ideals that are buried in the foundations of our country, while Democrats or progressives like to kind of cast that out and look towards the future of more accepting terms for things such as abortion, same-sex marriage, and transgender rights. And this happened when Biden got into office, and all of these progressives were very happy. But now over the last couple of years, as you've seen him kind of ransack our economy and radically spend on foreign policy over in Ukraine, you're seeing more of these people who were left back then start to sway more to the right. And that's kind of what's highlighted in the quote here on the screen, is that these events can always sway the direction of these trends in the other way. And that's why I feel like this best reflects the reflection of majority beliefs, because it can always be swayed and it's never one way or the other. There's always factors that can change it. Alright, so the second definition that I analyze is clash of interest groups. According to our textbook, interest groups are organizations or groups of people who try to influence the government's decisions on certain issues that concern the people within the interest group. They do this by influencing party members, by lobbying to them, and in exchange for them backing an issue or trying to solve an issue, they donate to their campaigns, and that's kind of how they influence them. This definition kind of suggests that they heavily influence public opinion, and that can be kind of problematic because there's money involved. And example of this would be the Biden administration getting a lot of donations from PACs, which are political action committees, during his run in 2020 for issues such as police brutality, the pandemic coming to an end, and other things like that. All right, so the article that I found that relates to clash of interest groups was a news article in Investopedia by the former news editor there, Deborah D'Souza. Her article highlighted the top donors in the 2020 Biden-Harris presidential campaign. The article also shines a light on the $5,600 limit to individual donors, as well as the use of super PACs, which are political action committees, in order to work around this limit. The quote that I used here just kind of shows that the main political action committee that they used is definitely biased towards their campaign, which is typical. If you looked at Republicans, it's a lot of Christian nonprofits and stuff like that. But the main issue that lies here is that it's getting money involved in politics, and when this happens, it's more benefiting the interest groups because, an example would be when Biden was backing BLM, and if one of his interest groups backed BLM, then Biden saying that he's going to change the issue is going to draw the eyes to that, and then seeing its correlation to that business is going to bring them more money. But there are obviously people that have other opinions towards issues like this, whose needs are not being met. And when it comes to politics, the aim should be pleasing all of the people in the country as a whole, and not just one side or the other.
So now we're going to talk about what role the mass media has when it comes to elite opinion. And before we get into what exactly that is, I think it's something that can be assumed about our society that there are some people who just seem to be more wealthy, more powerful, just richer in life overall. And that's what we would consider the elite. And in this case, the elite opinion, which is also referred to as elite discourse, is the discussion of politics, issues, and or candidates by leaders which are then communicated to the public. So political topics could be anything, any kind of, agenda-setting topic, any kind of hot topic like abortion or the economy and its issues that are going on right now, the recession that we're stepping into, anything like that would be political topics or issues of interest. And then candidates, especially in our state, in our area, there's the gubernatorial election between Tim Michels and Tony Evers, the incumbent, and in the U.S. Senate, it's Ron Johnson versus current Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes. And we're going to get a little bit more into that as we go. But to spread the elite discourse or elite opinion, the mass media is used. And that's the primary medium. And this can involve any kind of news reports, partisan arguments, news conferences, advertisements, and election campaigns. So we just talked about who exactly the elite are in our society. They're a little bit more wealthy, a little bit more powerful, and that's exactly what applies here with the mass media. How exactly is the mass media involved with dispersing elite opinion? Well, take a look at 90% of all mass media outlets that are controlled by 6 corporations, technically 5, because one of those corporations is owned by the other. And that's just a wide-scale corporate control over our mass media. So whatever message the ownership of these companies want to give you, they're going to get to you somehow, some way. And this part of this 90% is local news outlets, too. It's not national news. It's a lot of local TV, your local ABC affiliate, your local CBS affiliate. And these 6 corporations, including CBS, are CBS, Viacom, who owns CBS, Disney, Comcast, News Corp, and AT&T. And how these opinions are spread is that the elites of our society, these 6 corporations, they entertain ideas from policy stakeholders, also called lobbyists, who then use the media as the middleman or mediator, hence media, to make the message easier for the public to understand. The public then consumes the media in either an audiovisual format, like TV or radio, or another format like a public opinion poll that these elites might create themselves that involves this elitist discourse. So one example, which is shown in the article, these different ways that the elites will spread elite opinion, elite discourse, is political advertising. It's very simple. When you're watching a political ad with it's Tim Michaels versus Tony Evers, and specifically one that I remember that I see on YouTube like every day is, what is Tim Michaels' agenda on abortion? Well, ask him yourself. And it'll say, this, that, the other thing. Tim Michaels thinks this, don't vote him into office. And then at the very end it says, paid for by. And then there's a political action committee that's stated after. That's these policy stakeholders, these lobbyists that are spreading the messages of the elites that don't want a certain candidate to win. This is exactly how it's spread. There's no real news story here that I can cover or present, but I can present multiple articles that show that elites own the media and they use these political action committees to disperse their elitist discourse.
The theory that public opinion is a fiction or a myth stems from the idea that public opinion is in fact not real and is a social phantom construct that does not actually represent the views or values of the public. Furthermore, theorists that believe public opinion to be myth state that there is no public opinion due to the fact that there is no quantifiable way to find out the opinion of the entirety of a public. Supporters of this theory state journalists and politicians use the idea of public opinion to justify their decisions or stances, or promote the idea of support on their own front, or diminishing that of an opponent. From a voter's standpoint, public opinion can be used to sway the minds of the actual public and can frame a certain public in a way that is not truly representative of that public. Voters do not always feel like these decisions being made by their representatives have their best interests in mind, and are swept up into the idea of public opinion, therefore silencing those who may not be happy with the decisions a politician or a party is making. Furthermore, it is widely felt at times that politicians are not known for keeping their word to the public as a whole, so the idea of the public being represented fairly is met with pushback from those within the public, leading to those within the group feeling neglected or silenced. An example of this will be the "Not My President" slogan that gained steam during the Trump presidency, proving that public opinion is not a one-size-fits-all solution to the issues that the public faces, and ignoring this can lead to dissent. The article that we reviewed is a review of a book, What It Took to Win, A History of Democratic Party by Michael Kazin-Farrar. In this, Farrar breaks down his findings of angles that Democrats take social justice issues in order to appeal to the minority voters, all the while isolating others who do not align with their agenda. The Democrats have won over many new Americans or previously marginalized groups, and the party's reach exceeds its grip, particularly on white working and middle-class Americans, especially men. This quote goes on to prove that there is no such thing as a public opinion that fits the entirety of a public, and that those who are in the public that do not agree with the idea of the public opinion of that public can eventually feel silenced and will disagree with the overall feelings of their representative.
We had a technological issue here. Cyril's point that he was just talking about, the quote out of the article, is right here.
As we can see through the definitions, there is a variety of discourse that goes on when it comes to public opinions. Whether it be the clashing of interest groups or discussing corporate control over media, there is much to comprehend regarding the subject. We hope you enjoyed our presentation, and thank you for watching.